First of all, I just want to thank Ms. Lynn Davies and also Dr. Dalton for being here today. And thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say about this, and I'm really interested in all of the discussion that we'll get into. Before we begin, I just wanted to do a tiny little thought experiment, and that is, just in your minds, could you just try and guess my ethnicity? Should be pretty easy. Most people guess I'm Asian, which is correct, hence the thick nerdy glasses, the brown skin, the black hair. Yeah, this is correct. My mom was born in India and my dad comes from an Indian family. But what's more important than what you guessed, whether you guessed I was Indian or Mexican or whatever, is how you came to that conclusion. And if you don't know me, you probably came to that conclusion using certain stereotypes. Hence, the brown skin, the hair, the name, all of these kind of contribute to the stereotypical Indian persona. So what I want to try and get across today, and hopefully I'll do it well enough, is I want to get the idea across that if we change the way we think about stereotypes, it's going to change the way we interpret them, it's going to change the way that we make them, and a whole bunch of other things that has to do with this whole spectrum of bigotry and prejudice and stereotyping. So a lot of stereotypes are based off of past experience. Maybe you've met an Indian before. Maybe, and I don't think that this is true other than for my parents, but maybe you are Indian. But either way, over the years, your brain has kind of taken these experiences and you've formulated stereotypes, which you're applying to me right now. Now, I might be thinking at this point, oh no, I'm stereotyping. That means I'm a terrible person, I'm a racist, I'm a bigot. That is not true. Because everyone does indeed stereotype. It's in human nature, and that's really what I want to talk about today. I think a huge problem that we have in society is that we completely refuse to distinguish between stereotyping and bigotry. So, in school, whenever we talk about this, I'm always told that stereotyping is bad, 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 and stereotyping is the same thing as racism and prejudice. But I don't believe that to be true. I believe that stereotypes are just natural, general assumptions about someone or something that are based off of past and current information, and they're completely innocent. However, then you have bigotry, which is when you take this innocent stereotype and you start adding these things that are really unjustifiable, often using it as a means for spreading hate. And that's where you start leaning from stereotyping to bigotry. Bigotry is often a result of this subconscious fear of the unknown. And obviously from that ignorance is going to stem more prejudice, more discrimination, and then you're going to start having, the genocide like we saw in the Holocaust, the racism we saw in the 60s against African Americans. And this is what we want to avoid. So I said before that stereotypes are based off of past and current information. So what happens when our stereotypes are formed from information that's weighted or even untrue? Here's a little example. Whenever I look at the media and I see news about a terrorist attack, such as the Paris terrorist attacks, it's always done by an Islamic terrorist, right? I don't know if any of you have had this same experience, but no matter where I look, all of these terrorists are done by Muslims. Now, this might lead me to believe a couple of things. First, I might say, oh, most terrorist attacks, if not all of them, are committed by Islamic terrorists. Second, all Muslims therefore must be terrorists. Third, Islam must be a really hateful religion to turn out all of these bad people. But, of course, none of these are true. In Europe, over the past 5 years, there have been over 1,000 terrorist attacks, of which about 2% were committed by Muslims. Addressing the second point, okay, there are 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. 0.009% of them are terrorists. So I'm sorry, not everyone wearing a hijab is out there to kill you. And the third point, the Quran and Islam do indeed preach peace and tolerance and acceptance towards people who are different from ourselves. So that's where we can distinguish from stereotyping and bigotry. And that is definitely a problem that we have in society. But what about the other end of it? And this is a problem that we don't discuss as much. What happens when we misinterpret other people's stereotypes? So here's an example. I work in a little pharmacy in a remote village in India where no one speaks a word of English. But I just happen to move here from PA. Now, a white American tourist walks into my shop, and he begins speaking in this really slow and deliberate English, like people do when they think that someone can't understand it. Like, you know, I have fever, need medicine. Okay, that might be exaggerating a little bit, but either way, he starts speaking to me in that kind of a manner, and my initial reaction is going to be, who is this guy? Why is he talking to me like I'm some idiot? He needs to get out. But if I step back and I kind of put myself into his shoes, the situation looks entirely different. He's just walked into this room, walked into a village where no one speaks a word of English. So, of course, the little Indian guy standing behind the counter is probably not going to speak English. Yes, would it have been better if he had learned enough of the language, whether it's Hindi or Bengali or whatever, to be able to communicate what he wanted? Yeah, that would have been great. But not all of us have that luxury, and depending on the situation, it might have been impossible. So why am I so irritated and angry at this man who was just trying to get his message across clearly? If he had walked in speaking English as he normally does, wouldn't it be safe to assume that he's arrogant because he believes that the rest of the world should speak English fluently, which is of course absurd. So it's when we misinterpret stereotypes that are completely innocent, and in some cases pretty much justified, whether they're correct or not. It's when we misinterpret those that we start this endless cycle of misinterpretation, misunderstanding, and resentment. And that's almost as bad as the bigotry we're seeing. So when someone stereotypes us incorrectly, I get a lot of people, thinking I'm Mexican, for example, or asking me if Diwali is my Christmas. So when someone says something that may be incorrect, but it's innocently intended, I have to sometimes take a step back and make sure I don't blow up on them, because they're not trying to be hateful. They're just making an assumption, and it's incorrect, but all I have to do is tell them, hey, no, that's actually not the way things are, or actually, Diwali is not like my Christmas. Hinduism actually came before Christianity, or whatever you need to say to make sure that they don't go around with that incorrect assumption in their mind. Now, this is not to say that when someone is spreading bigoted views, that we should just stand by and kind of say, no, it's okay. Because it should never be okay for anyone to feel comfortable expressing hatred views. That's just, it shouldn't be okay. And so it really is our job, whether we're the oppressed, whether we're bystanders, to stand up to that and to continue that fight. Because if we don't continue this fight against bigotry, then all of the ideas of liberty, justice, equality, in the near future, they'll all just disappear. And one thing I know for sure is that there's not a single one of us who would ever want our kids, our future generations, to live in a world like that. Thanks.